Imagine moving into your dream suburban neighborhood. Tree-lined streets, quiet evenings, kids riding bikes, and then discovering it's run by a dictator. Not a mayor, not a sheriff, but your HOA president. A man who fined me $500 for a fence color I couldn't control, while secretly stealing thousands from my neighbors. He thought I was powerless. He was wrong. This is the story of how I turned his own rules against him, exposed every dirty secret, and made sure he'd never run another neighborhood again. If you've ever had to deal with an unfair boss, a power-hungry neighbor, or anyone who thought they were untouchable, this story is going to hit deep. Make sure you hit like, subscribe, and get ready, because this is one of the most satisfying revenge stories you'll ever hear. When I first moved into my neighborhood, I thought I'd found peace. The lawns were manicured, the houses were beautiful, and everyone seemed friendly enough. But underneath that perfect surface was a rot, a petty tyrant named Todd. Todd was the HOA president, and he treated the neighborhood like his personal kingdom. He enforced rules with military precision, but only when it suited him. Leave your trash cans out a minute past 9 a.m. That's a $200 fine. Paint your fence the wrong shade of brown? $500. But walk past Todd's house? You'd see a jungle of unpermitted structures, a fence taller than city ordinances allowed, and a yard that looked more like a scrapyard than a suburban lawn. And the worst part? Todd smiled while doing it. He enjoyed punishing people. He enjoyed the power. The final straw came when my fence, slightly off color because the approved stain wasn't available, earned me a $500 fine. I showed him the receipt, explained the shortage. Todd just smirked and said, "And rules are rules," and then he walked away. That's the moment the rage settled deep in my chest. My palms were sweaty, my jaw clenched so hard it hurt. I realized reasoning with Todd was useless. He didn't want fairness, he wanted control. And if I wanted peace, I'd have to destroy him from the inside. I volunteered for the HOA board. I told Todd I wanted to get involved in the community, pretending to admire how much he did for the neighborhood. His ego couldn't resist. He welcomed me aboard, convinced I was just another pawn. For 2 years, I played the role of the eager, quiet newbie. I never challenged him. I nodded in meetings. I took notes. And behind the mask, I was studying him like a scientist observing a rat. Todd's leadership style was bullying. He buried board members in paperwork. He pushed votes when only his allies were around. If a homeowner complained, their paperwork mysteriously disappeared. He thought I was harmless, but I was patient. Patient enough to notice something he didn't want anyone noticing. The money didn't add up. Our HOA fees were some of the highest in the county. And yet, the pool was closed half the summer. The landscaping was dead. The playground was falling apart. So where was the money going? When I asked for the budget, Todd laughed. "Don't worry about it. I've got it under control." That was the moment my suspicion hardened into certainty. He was hiding something. I filed a formal request for financial records. Legally, he had to comply. Weeks passed. Nothing. Neighbors whispered to me about their own suspicions. One swore Todd used HOA funds to build a new patio. Another said Todd's kids swam in the closed-for-maintenance pool all summer. I realized this wasn't just about power, it was about theft. When Todd finally coughed up the records, I almost laughed. They weren't records, they were chaos. Invoices missing, payments mislabeled, expenses that made no sense. A $15,000 payment to a landscaping company that didn't exist. Thousands in administrative fees with no receipts. I cross-referenced bank statements with public records. That's when I found it, the smoking gun. Todd was funneling money directly into his personal accounts. And he wasn't even subtle. He inflated contractor fees and pocketed the difference, splitting profits with his shady buddy who handled maintenance. I compiled everything: spreadsheets, copies of checks, notarized neighbor statements. I built a case so airtight it could have gone straight to the FBI, and then I waited for the perfect stage. Part 5: The Coup. The annual HOA meeting was usually boring. 10 people showed up at most. But this year I made sure the entire neighborhood knew what Todd had been doing. I knocked on doors. I explained just enough to get people curious, just enough to get them angry. When the night of the meeting arrived, the room was overflowing. Neighbors stood along the walls whispering, arms crossed. Todd walked in, smug as ever, and started droning about how hard he worked for us, how much he sacrificed. I could almost see the sweat glisten on his forehead under the fluorescent lights. That's when I stood. My voice was calm, but my heart was hammering in my chest. Todd, could you explain some discrepancies in the budget? He laughed nervously. I don't think this is the time or place. I raised my voice just enough for everyone to hear. Actually, Todd, it's the perfect time. I handed out copies of my report. The room went silent. Pages flipped. Whispers turned into gasps, then into shouts. Todd tried to shout over them, but the tide had turned. His power was gone. I called for a vote to remove him as president. Hands shot into the air, nearly unanimous. Todd was out. After Todd's removal, we brought in an independent auditor. They confirmed everything. Todd had stolen over $50,000, mismanaged tens of thousands more. Fraud, embezzlement, the works. We turned it all over to the police. The civil lawsuit drained him. He had to sell his house just to pay back what he owed. His contractor buddy blacklisted from the entire county. Todd's name became a punchline. He tried joining another HOA in a nearby town. The moment someone Googled him, they laughed him right out of the room. Part 7: The Aftermath. Today, the pool sparkles, the landscaping is fresh, the HOA fees lower than they've been in a decade. And Todd's old house belongs to a family who actually cares about the community. Sometimes I walk past it and smile, not out of spite, but satisfaction, because justice wasn't just served. It was plated, garnished, and savored by every single neighbor who lived under Todd's little dictatorship. And the best part, he'll never hold that kind of power again. The look on Todd's face that night, the smirk wiped clean, the panic in his eyes as he realized he was cornered. It was better than any fine he'd ever handed out. For once, he was powerless. For once, the rules applied to him. And the neighborhood he thought he owned, it cheered as he fell. If this story proves anything, it's that power without accountability always collapses. Sometimes the best revenge isn't loud or violent. It's patient, methodical, and undeniable. Karma doesn't always come fast, but when it does, it's devastating. Though, if this story gave you chills, smash that like button and tell me in the comments what's the worst abuse of power you've ever seen. And of course, make sure to subscribe for more stories of justice, revenge, and karma served ice cold.